Hey guys, I got some traction on my website, especially on the plugins page. Uh, this is my website and this is the plugins page, especially for Drummer, the VST3 or audio unit plugin that I have. And since I have not created a full-fledged video on all its capabilities, I thought I'll create this video that acts as a walkthrough on its features. So the way I set it up is, I typically have a channel dedicated to Drummer, where I have loaded my VST3 plugin, and then I have another channel over here, which is my drums instrument. This can be a regular Bitwig drum sampler, or it can be a built-in live drum sampler, or it can be battery as you can see over here. I like to use this Dolby kit. I think it's in one of the expansions, but I like this for the demonstration of drum. I test all my drummer stuff with that Dolby kit in battery 4. So this is the interface and it has a few controls. I know that the UI is not the best, and that is because I am not very well versed with making really polished looking GUIs when it comes to VST instruments. But I do have some ideas that are pretty solid, and that's why I tried to kind of move ahead in the journey of creating plugins with some controls like these. So here we have 4 quadrants, if you will. On the left, this top left is the pattern selection. It has a bunch of categories, and each category, so let's say I selected disco, each category has a subcategory. If you select, let's say pop, you have pop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and the rest of it. If you select swing, you have swing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And all of these patterns, all of these categories and their sub patterns, they are basically from the book 260 drum patterns. Let me see if I can find it. 260 drum machine patterns. Yeah, this is the book. Here's the PDF for that book. Yeah, this is the book. It's a pretty solid book, and it has a whole lot of patterns for various styles like Afro cub. So for example, Afro cub, right? In the plugin, if you go to Afro cub, which is the first one, you'll see that the patterns are Afro cub 1, 2, 3, 4 and till 9. That's exactly like the book. Afro cub 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? So that's how this plugin is made. That's the idea behind it, to have all of these patterns from this book available as a plugin. And then obviously there is some enhancement on top of that. For example, you can randomly select a pattern. So if I click this button, what it does is it first randomly chooses a category and then it randomly chooses a subcategory. So if I hit randomize pattern, now it has selected shuffle break randomly as its as its main category, and within shuffle break it has selected number 1 as its subcategory. If I click it again, it has selected reggae break as its main category and reggae break 8 as its pattern. I hope that makes sense. If I go back to say Afro cub, and then the way to use this plugin is you use this green button on this 4th quadrant over here for MIDI generation, and we'll come to this one and this one in a bit. But for now, I have selected Afro cub 1, which is the default, and I am going to drag this MIDI over here. So it generated this MIDI file, as you can see. If I play it, okay. Now if I select say Afro cub 5 and drag that next to it so that we can see some difference. So this is the first pattern. And this is the second one, which is Afro cub 5. Okay. So it has generated these MIDI files for these pattern selections. If I drag it again for the same selection, it is exactly the same pattern again. Okay. And obviously you want something a little bit beyond that, because if this plugin was just about creating MIDI patterns based on this book. Like, just look at all these MIDI patterns and put them over here and make them available as a plugin. There is no need to make a plugin. I could just give the MIDI files out and you could use it. You don't need to install it, just use the MIDI files. But this is a little bit beyond that. So, let us come to this second quadrant over here called enhancement settings. What this enhancement settings does is, it takes the category and the subcategory that you have selected and it allows you to add some complexity or ghost notes or remove the kick drum entirely. So, let us take it one at a time. Complexity implies it is a slider and it goes all the way over here. Whatever percentage that you set over, it is a percentile value. Whatever let us say for example, this one is about 21%. What it means is, it is going to take the underlying groove or the pattern that has been selected over here and then it is going to slightly complicate it, make some more notes in there. So, for example, this is Afro Cup 5, which looks like this, as you can see over here. Now, let us take this complexity slider which set to 21%, let us take it next to it, so that we can see some apparent differences. So, this is without the complexity, it is 0, and this is with the complexity, which is set at 21%. So, look at it, 0, 21%. So, all it has done is, it has just introduced a few more notes. So, if the original sounds like this, the one with 21% complexity sounds like this. So, it is a very small subtle kind of a change, and then obviously needless to say, you can bump up the complexity and then drag it. And this is the original. Let us take a more apparent kind of a thing. So, let us take maybe pop. So, that is the simplest way to look at it, and I will set the complexity to 0 first and I will drag it over here like this. And what I typically like to do with complexity is, I like to use, I will delete this, I like to use a generated pattern like this 3 times, and for the 4th time I like to do it with a slightly higher complexity, maybe even more than this, so that it acts as a small roll kind of a thing towards the end of the 4th bar. So, 3 bars are without any complexity and the 4th bar is with complexity for the selected pattern selection. So, let us listen to the whole thing how it sounds. First 3 bars are without any complexity and then the 4th bar is with 21%, 22% complexity. Okay, maybe I should just set a little bit more. Okay, I hope that was evident. Let us take one more example just to drive the point home. Maybe we can select rock and let us have complexity down to 0. Let us repeat it 3 times and then take complexity a little bit more. Okay, this is a good category. Okay, I hope that was clear. So that's the complexity thing. There is one more thing over here called ghost notes. So let's try with ghost notes and maybe we can boost the complexity even further. What ghost notes does is, and this is a very nascent kind of a ghost notes feature, it's not very profound, but it adds these small ghost notes as you can see over here. So it gives it a slight additional feel. Obviously this is a very new feature and needs a lot more work on it, but I have started adding this feature, and as time goes by I will obviously be updating it in the subsequent versions of Drummer. Right now it's at 0.8.2. In upcoming versions there will be better ghost note implementation, but for now let's listen to it how it sounds. This is without the ghost note and complexity set to 0, and this is with complexity. I wonder if the ghost notes were audible, so let's just zoom in. Or we can just generate one more time. One more time. So you can see if I have not changed the complexity, I have set it to 63%, it keeps generating slightly different kind of complexity. So it's not the same complexity settings, like for 63% is going to keep on giving a similar kind of a beat. 63% is on top of whatever is the underlying pattern. So it doesn't mean that it is going to use some predetermined position, it is going to use a random set of notes that it adds on top of the base pattern, and it is going to do it 63% of the time. So that's why each time you drag a new pattern, and if you haven't changed the complexity settings, it will still give you a slightly different pattern. And the ghost note just makes it slightly bit better. See, it's different than the earlier one, though the complexity is still 63%. Okay, so that's that. And then there is this remove kick, might as well demonstrate that. So when I click on this, it either does a on or off, same with ghost notes, on or off. Like I said, I know the UI is not the best and I need to work on it, but the functionality is there. So this on means remove kick, it will remove the kick. What that means is from the underlying pattern, regardless of what complexity in ghost notes you set, it is going to remove the kick drum part of it. So let's drag this now, and you can see now the kick drum is gone. There are no notes for kick drum. The reason for having this feature is in EDM sometimes you would want a drum pattern kind of a thing on top of an existing kick drum. So that's the reason this feature exists, and to demonstrate it I will just turn on the metronome, which can act as our kick drum. Okay. And then needless to say, you can do that thing that I was alluding to earlier, where you can have the same pattern repeated 3 times, and then for the 4th one you just bring in a slight variation, so that you have 3 parts which sound the same, and then the 4th one is slight variation. So let's see how it sounds with the metronome. Okay. I'll go back to having the kick again, and maybe I'll reduce the complexity slider, and I'm going to demonstrate this quadrant, which is playback settings. At the moment, each note, each MIDI note that gets printed over here has a default length of a quarter note, and the bass octave is set to 1, because this is the most common octave I've seen in drum VSTs or sampler based drum instruments in DAWs. They are all around octave 1, but for whatever reason your sampler or your VST is not using octave 1, it's on a slightly higher octave, then you can change that over here. So if I do 2 and then drag a pattern over here like this, it will do the same pattern. However, it will start the kick drum from C2 because we selected octave 2. That's what it does. I'll move back to octave 1, and I will demonstrate the note length now. So, the default is quarter note. There are a few more options here. For example, if I do half notes and then drag a pattern, it will obviously be longer because the half note is longer than a quarter note and it's occupying 2 bars now. And let's loop that and listen to it. I can get rid of the metronome. Okay. And then if I do it 8 notes instead, it will be much faster. And it's half the length because it's 8 note is half of quarter notes. So, I am going to have to reduce the length of this and then drag it like this so that I can hear it. Okay. And then the same is available as dotted 8 notes as well. If I drag this, it is this long. So, I am going to reduce the length like this and loop it. And if you play it out, it's dotted 8 notes. Same exists for dotted quarter notes as well. If I drag it out over here, and then maybe we can play it against a metronome just to see how it sounds. Yeah, obviously it's not 4x4. The metronome is 4x4 and it's not following any dotted pattern, but the note length is. So, I'll switch off the metronome again and then we'll hear it out. Okay. And then needless to say, there are more subdivisions. We already checked out 8 notes. So, if I just loop this much and then you can go even smaller, this 16th notes and even smaller, and we can go 32. Okay, you get the picture, right? I'll go back to quarter notes, put it over here, and then randomize pattern, try that out. Randomize pattern. Okay, I hope this covers all the available features of Drummer. There will be more features coming in, but I just wanted to kind of cover whatever we have so far, and I hope you will try this plugin out in your DAW and let me know what you think about it. The plugin is free and is available on scribbletune.com. If you go to scribbletune.com, there's this plugins section, and in plugins there's Drummer VST 3AU. Here you have download links for Mac and for Windows. So, for Mac you can use VST3 or audio units if you are using Ableton Live. VST3 can work for Bitwig, audio units will work for Ableton Live, and this is because VST3, the plugins that I am making, they are not signed from Apple or something like that, because that requires some payment to Apple, I think $99. I'll get to that when I get to that. For now they are not signed, but I can assure you there's nothing wrong with the plugins. So, it might show you some pop-up or whatever, and that's the reason I created this AU version for Ableton Live. You can try that out. And then there is VST3 and clap version for Windows. Both Mac and Windows do come with a standalone application as well, so that if your DAW does not recognize either of these formats, you can still use the standalone version, which you can open up and then continue to drag and drop patterns in your DAW. There is one issue that was reported by one of the users, where if you have Windows Defender installed, then it might prevent one of these download links, because there is, as I said, a standalone application available along with the VST3, and that standalone application is a exe file for Windows, and Windows Defender thinks that there is some problem with the standalone exe and it may prevent you from downloading. So for that, VST3 and clap for Windows are available as separate downloads. So these should not have any problem if you are using Windows Defender. So yeah, so that's that for now. Do let me know in the comments what you think about this plugin, and yeah, cheers.